Good morning, everyone, and welcome to the Sunday service of Now Creations. It's this joy to be with you. Just nice to be with you this morning. Just to be with you in peace, serenity, and inner calmness, and knowing that we can live life from this wonderful place on a daily basis. Just nice to be with you. A couple of announcements before we begin. First of all, next Thursday, Thanksgiving, we'll be having our Thanksgiving service from 10 to 11 o'clock on Zoom. On Tuesday, you'll receive an email if you're on our email list. Simply go to the email, simply click on the connection, the link, and it'll bring you right into our Thanksgiving service from 10 to 11. Also, just a couple of comments about the COVID-19. Just on a daily basis, I encourage you, first of all, simply to be vigilant. Be vigilant for yourself and for others. Be helpful where you can, for yourself and for others. But please do not be fearful. Please do not be fearful. Know that the power within you is always greater than any problem you are facing. And may you go to that power and allow it to be directive for you. Vigilant, helpful, but not fearful. With that in mind, let me now proceed to our teaching. Once again, it is a great joy simply to greet you in this weekly teaching. And once again, I was moved by the testimonial speaker in our last open forum session. And once again, I decided to reflect on the open forum experience in this week's teaching entitled Soul Stories. So let's begin. Now that we have had 3 testimonials with several more to come, I was moved to ask myself the question, what are we learning from these testimonials in which a person shares their spiritual journey thus far? In response to that question, what are we learning from these testimonials? There is one obvious point, and then 3 implications that I would like to share with you. First of all, the obvious point. The obvious point is that each one of us has our own unique soul story. While we often gather in groups, each participant has their own unique story. Each soul has had its own story of, first of all, being raised in a family that has shaped much of their early history. Secondly, each soul has had their own unique worldly experience of simply dealing with life. And then thirdly, each soul has taken a look into themselves, a good look, a deeper look, to determine how they want to live, and particularly how they desire to go forward in life. It's not surprising that you might be saying the same thing about yourself. Raised in a family, dealing with life, and now taking a good look at where you are and how you want to go forward in your life. Indeed, each of us has our own story, absolutely unique. As I like to say, the universe is not redundant. It has just made one of us. Affirming the fact that each one of us has our own story, I would like to share with you the following 3 implications that tell us what is unique about our soul journey. The first implication. The first implication is not just that each one of us has our own soul story, but more so, truly, that each of our soul stories has been created by us. Let me just say that again, that each of our soul stories has been created by us. While our soul origins might seem vague to us, as to, well, why did we choose our parents and how do we get so involved in the world? But little by little, and more, we realize in a sense that our family, in our worldly situations, were the seed beds, the basis for our more conscious decision to be a more conscious creator of our own lives. Let me explain. Sometimes, maybe perhaps during your teenage years, or in your 20s, or maybe your 30s, you realized that you were no longer your parents' child. You were no longer your parents' kid. Not that you didn't love them, not that you didn't respect them, but you came to realize that you would now do what you thought was the right thing for you to do. This decision to do what you thought, whether your family understood it at this time or not, when you decided to follow your own inner voice, rather than the voice of your parents or the voices of anyone else, when you began to listen to your own life and what you felt you should do, directed by the intuitions or the proclivities of your inner feelings, you began your own conscious creation, whether you knew it at the time or not. May I just repeat that? At this time, when you decided that you would follow your own thoughts and not simply what your parents or others might have said to do, when you decided to listen to your own voice, what you felt was the right thing for you to do, guided by the proclivities or the intuitions of your inner feelings, you began to be your own conscious creator. I like to use a word that is often used in A Course in Miracles, which describes this experience. You became your own chooser. You became your own chooser. While the details of the past might be fuzzy in some way, you knew that at some time in your life, you became your chooser. You began to choose your relationships. You began to choose your work. You began to choose how you would live. And you began to choose your own particular principles and values in life. And you began to choose your own spiritual experiences. But there was something about being your own chooser that was a surprise to you and to me. Being the chooser did not mean that you only choose once in your lifetime, to have only one significant other, to have only one career, and to have even only one spiritual experience, because you came to realize that being the chooser was an ongoing experience of making continuous, conscious choices. It's an ongoing experience of making continuous, conscious choices, and somewhere along the way, you began to realize that choosing was creating. Choosing was creating. You realized that you were choosing, creating yourself. And little by little, but more and more, as this reality dawned upon you, that choosing was creating, you became more attentive to your choices. You became more attentive as to how you would live. You became more attentive as to the way you would treat others. And you became more attentive, much more concerned about how you would be aligned to the God choices that you would make in life. This reality of becoming the conscious chooser and then the conscious creator, and now the ongoing creator, is the basis of everyone's soul story so far. May I repeat this? The reality of becoming your own conscious chooser, and then realizing that choosing is creating, and now we are ongoingly consciously choosing our futures. This is the basis of everyone's real story so far. Each of us has clearly understood that sooner or later we began to follow our own voice, which then, to our surprise, has become the voice of God. This is why you have a soul story, not just a personality story. This is why you have a soul story, not just a personality story, for you have listened to the creative voice that is within you. And simultaneously now, that voice and your voice are one. Quite a journey, quite successful, and more to come. The second implication. The second implication is that if you have a personal soul story, which you do, then so does everyone else. So does everyone else. This implication can become quite complicated for so many reasons, but it can be clarified by one concept and then by one application, neither of which are initially simple, but both of which are the truth. First of all, the concept. From a soul perspective, we, you and I, we see everyone as a child of God, and there is a oneness among us all. This oneness is a given. It's an unalterable principle. Everyone is a part of the oneness. It is a part of the whole. Everyone is a part of our family. This immediately raises the question of those souls who are having a radically different soul experience than you are having. Those souls who are steeped in fear, anxiety, and worry, steeped in separation. Those souls who bully others and try to subject them, either personally, politically, or nationally. And those souls who seemingly attack others for their personal profit, people who lie, cheat, and steal. Are they too having a soul experience? Yes. Yes. Yes, they are having a soul experience. And because their soul and the souls they might attack they too are having a soul experience as well. We must move beyond the notion. We must move beyond the notion that soul experiences, soul stories, are always loving and kind all the time. Soul experiences are soul experiences. They are experiences, just experiences. We have to realize that it is the soul, not the personality, that is having the experience, both for the attacker and the attacked. It is the soul that is learning, growing in experience through the personality. And as it does so, it is the larger universal energy that is experiencing itself through that soul. Every soul is giving the divine a first-class human experience, regardless of what that human third-dimensional perspective might seem to be. In the long run and in the short run, the soul is having experiences, not necessarily right ones or wrong ones, not necessarily good ones or bad ones, but simply experiences. This is a difficult perspective for the third-dimensional human mind to understand, with its proclivity to want only good and right experiences from its point of view. And yet the soul will have it its way. Try to stop all the seemingly negative experiences that are happening right now in your life. And try to tell all the people in your life what they should be doing. Try to change their souls and see what happens. It is so much easier to accept what is happening without judgment, yet with understanding. It's the soul that's having the experience. And the other's experience might not be your experience. Soon you will see that you will settle down much more easily, because just as you would not want others to tell you what to do, and they couldn't if they tried, so you cannot tell others what to do even if you try, because it is their soul experience during this lifetime. Accept the fact that their soul is having an experience just like your soul is having its experience. As I said, this is not an easy thing to wrap your mind around. That's why you need to wrap your soul around it to be able to make much more sense. It's only a soul experience. Now to my second point, the application. The second point concerns an application, that is primarily the relationship of parents to their children, or it could be really anyone you care about. But for right now, let's focus on parents and children. Any parent's dilemma is, how do you allow your child to have their personal soul experience when they seem to be taking a negative path that will hurt them in life? So many questions arise. Is there a time where you have to exercise tough love rather than simply to accept what is occurring? Can you really do anything to change their course of action, just as perhaps, well, no one can do anything to change your course? Do you risk? Do you risk too much interference, knowing that this might lead to estrangement between you and your children? The drama between parents and children leads to so many types of experiences, soul experiences, to say the least. In the midst of this dilemma, I have found the poem On Children by Khalil Gibran to be a great piece of wisdom. Two things have struck me. The first one, when Gibran says, "Your children come through you, but they do not belong to you. They have their own journey to make, just as you did, and still do. For you are continuing to create as parents of the children." It's a wonderful idea. Your children come through you, but they do not belong to you. And you too must continue to create your relationship to the children. To accept this truth is difficult for many parents because they feel they know what is best for their kids, just as your parents felt the same about you. Oh, by the way, did you listen? Did you listen to them? Should you have listened to them? Will your kids listen? Should they listen? I'm not here to tell you what to do, but the last part of Gibran's poem is even clearer to me in my edited words. Parents are the bow from which the arrows, their children, are sent, but God is the archer. Let me repeat this. Parents are the bow from which the arrows, their children, are sent, but God is the archer. To understand this truth can spare parents of so many unnecessary worries. You are the bow from which your children, the arrows, fly. And you've done a good job. But there comes a time when the arrows become their own choosers. The arrows begin to choose their own targets in light of the archer's direction. What is the archer's direction? It is their soul self. For this will be their soul story, just as you and I have had ours. Let me just repeat that. There comes a time when the arrows become their own choosers. The arrows begin to choose their own targets in light of the archer's direction. What is the archer's direction? It is their soul self. For this will be their soul story, just as you and I have our own. Such an important thing to understand. Well, I see that I have run out of time, but I have not exhausted the message I want to deliver. So next week's teaching will be Soul Stories, Part 2. In the meantime, please focus on your own soul story and know full well as you do so that you will be able to also assist others, especially those whom you love, to assist them to focus in their lives on their soul stories. Remember, it is the soul that has the experiences, and the soul is eternal. Please, please, don't get lost in human worry. Let me now take you into meditation, and what a joy it is to do so. Let us begin our meditation today as we normally do by just taking that moment to stop, focus on our breath, just nicely breathing in and breathing out, and allowing the breath to settle us, relaxing the body, calming the mind, and bringing your soul to the fore. Please begin. There came a time in your life when you became a chooser. You began to choose for yourself. Something occurred, perhaps even unconsciously, but you knew that you were going to make decisions on your own. That it was important for you to follow what you thought. In fact, you could not follow what you thought. You began to choose. freedom had come to you. But with your freedom came the daunting task of responsibility. It's one thing to be free, quite another to make responsible choices, not to mess up. So with that freedom, there were a lot of stops and starts, maybe not quite sure what to do or where to go. You knew that you were in charge, but you really didn't know sometimes what to do. You did the best you could. Although never admitting it, sometimes you did some of the things your parents did, or what your friends did, or what society said you should do. It was often a very difficult, confusing time. What should I do? What's the right way to live? Understandably, the mind became very perplexed. What voice do I listen to? Should I do this? Should I do that? What my parents said or my friends? What voice? What voice to guide my choices? And then, somewhere along the way, you heard an inner voice. You kind of knew it was always there, but many times you just didn't listen. But now you are. You are listening to an inner guide. And that inner guide began to speak to you. At first you weren't quite sure whether or not to follow it, but you did. And even though a lot of other people didn't seem to follow your inner voice, every time you did, it worked better. It made you feel better. And it helped in your situation with others. Little by little, you began to trust this inner voice because it worked so well. And then one day, it just hit you. Being the chooser was also being your creator. You just began to understand that you are creating the reality of your life by the choices you make. The chooser had become the creator. And you have not backed away from this truth. When you choose, you create. It's the truth. Now, as soon as I said this, to choose is to create, it's the truth. Did you not feel, right at this moment, something within you that just said, yes? Yes, it is. It's the truth. feels right. And now you're beginning to realize that you are a conscious creator. You are a conscious creator of your life. It is your soul story. Would you acknowledge the truth of this statement by the feeling you now have right at this moment? And in turn, may we consciously invite others, our families, certainly our kids, but everyone, to follow their own inner voice, that it might become their soul story.
the light shines bright to illumine love without, love within. I honor thee, I honor thee. Namaste, I honor thee, I honor thee, I honor thee. Namaste, I honor thee. When you are where you need to be, within that space, I honor thee. Seen through eyes of illusion, seen through spirit, we are one. I honor thee, I honor thee, I honor thee. Namaste, I honor thee, I honor thee, I honor thee, I honor thee. Namaste, I honor thee. Namaste, I honor
I honor your soul story. Thank you for sharing it with me. I'm glad that I could share mine with you. After all, we're family. May you see it so. Namaste.